A very pleasant good afternoon to all of our friends or viewers, those listening via Second Advent Radio. And whether you are joining via SLC Adventist or SLC Church Member, Advent Radio, we welcome you. Whether you are joining via, and trust that by the grace of God, the discussion this afternoon will prove meaningful. We have a very exciting topic as we go into this afternoon's discussion. I want to just say, especially as we approach the Christmas season, people get excited, and one of the excitement is what we're going to eat. I was on a program the other day with some folks, and one person says, I just enjoy watching people eat. Well, why am I talking about eating? We're not really necessarily talking about diet, but we're talking about non-communicable disease. Our topic for this afternoon is non-communicable disease or diseases and the Seventh-day Adventist Church Member. Wherever you are, we welcome you and pray that indeed you will be blessed as a result of this program. We have a panel of guests. We're going to introduce them to you right after a word of prayer. Father, be with us as we go into this afternoon's discussion. It's a very important subject, a very important topic. We ask that you will be with our listeners, give them understanding and a willingness to examine their lives to see how they can live healthier lives for you. Guide us and take full control in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
So as I have shared already, our topic for this afternoon is non-communicable diseases and the Seventh-day Adventist Church Member. Now, the Seventh-day Adventist Church is known for its strong emphasis on with such an emphasis, it would be natural to believe that there should not be a prevalence of lifestyle diseases among Seventh-day Adventists. But is this really the case? When we look around our congregations, what do we see? Today on Let's Talk, we are going to explore the topic of non-communicable diseases and the Adventist Church Member. With me to discuss this very important topic, a panel of guests from the Antigua Seventh-day Adventist Health Association. And I am pleased to introduce these guests to you this afternoon. We have with us Dr. Andrew Gardner. Let me just spotlight him so you can see him there. Dr. Gardner is a Seventh-day Adventist minister, but he has had an interest in alternative medicine, and so he pursued studies. If I get it wrong, Dr. Gardner, correct me. He pursued studies in naturopathic medicine, and we are delighted to have him with us this afternoon. So he's going to be sharing from the alternative medicine perspective. Welcome, Dr. Gardner.
Thank you. Good to be here.
All right. We also have with us Nurse Valerie Williams. Nurse Williams is a seasoned medical practitioner. She is responsible as now, I believe she works with the Ministry of Health in the capacity of the coordinator for non-communicable diseases. So we have the individual who has all the stats and all the information with us this afternoon. Welcome, Nurse Williams.
Good afternoon and welcome.
And finally, on our panel today, we have Dr. Camaria De Castro. Dr. De Castro is a specialist in internal medicine, also attached to the Ministry of Health. We are delighted to have you with us, Dr. De Castro. Good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon. I'm glad to be here.
Wonderful. We are so delighted that all three of you have accepted to be with us on Let's Talk this afternoon. We are going to be sharing on non-communicable diseases. We want to go right into the discussion. You will discover that an hour goes by very, very quickly. So let me just jump right in. Let us begin this discussion by helping our viewers and our listeners, some are listening on Second Advent Radio, to understand exactly what we mean when we say non-communicable diseases. How do we define NCDs? I don't know which one of you want to respond to this, but how do we define? Maybe I should start with Nurse Williams, since she is the coordinator. How do we define NCDs? Nurse Williams, I think you're muted.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So non-communicable diseases, or NCDs, are diseases which are not passed from one person to the next. They are diseases that take a long time to develop, and also they exist with the individual for long periods of time. So we are not talking about so we're talking about things like diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular diseases, asthma, and those kind of cancers and those kind of illnesses. So those are what we refer to as non-communicable diseases. They're not, transferred from one person to the other. Most of them, and the reason why we refer to them as lifestyle diseases as well, is because they're related to the fact that based on some of our behaviors, they cause increased risk. So we refer to them as lifestyle diseases.
Now, I wanted to just follow up on your response there, Nurse Williams, because you mentioned cancer in that category.
Mm-hmm.
Are there some forms of cancer that would be considered in a different category?
Correct. That is correct.
Okay.
And
yes.
again, it's the risk factors that are so like tobacco use, alcohol use. So alcohol use is associated with breast cancer. Tobacco use is associated with cancer of the cervix. So, and alcohol use also causes cancer of liver, throat. So there are risk factors for some of the cancer. So one of these risk factors is responsible for at least 13 of the different cancers that we see.
Oh, that is interesting.
Yes.
I didn't.
So we can go through that later. Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. So that's interesting. So viewers,
and then maybe too, we should add that when we speak about risk factors as well, there are risk factors that we categorize two ways. They're either modifiable or non-modifiable. So your non-modifiable risk factors are the things we have no control over. So we have no control over our age, our gender, our race, because based on your race, we are more at risk for certain diseases. So hypertension, for example, is very common in the Black, but you hardly find this disease in the Asians. So we go to the restaurants and we see the Japanese and the Chinese shaking salt on their food like crazy. And we decide before we even taste our food, we do the same thing and we start shaking salt. We do not tolerate sodium the same way as them. And so therefore, you'll find that hypertension is more common in ethnic groups. So the African Americans are more at risk for hypertension. And we also have family history. So genetics dispose you to certain cancers as well.
Okay, I don't know if anybody wants to jump in and add anything to that before I
well, unless we want to do the modifiable one, because those are the non-modifiable. So we have no control over those. So these modifiable ones are the ones that we refer to again as the lifestyle choices. So physical inactivity, tobacco use, excessive use of alcohol, unhealthy diets, and increased use of sodium and low fruits and vegetable consumptions. So those are what we refer to as the modifiable risk factors.
Now you have said quite a lot there, and I kind of want to slow down because I don't want our viewers to miss some very important elements. I was about to ask for a distinction between lifestyle diseases and non-communicable diseases because we sometimes use them interchangeably. But you have introduced the subject of modifiable and non-modifiable, which is rather very interesting. So in other words, am I to understand that while a disease may be categorized as non-communicable, that I can, because of my lifestyle, modify my behavior to make me greater at risk or lesser at risk?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
I get you. So our emphasis, therefore, on healthy lifestyle from the church's perspective, we talk about New Start, we talk about regular exercise, we talk about sleep. I hear Dr. Gardner on the radio telling people that they need to make sure they rest properly, they eat properly. So all of these, you would consider, therefore, modifiable factors, things that we can do to lessen our risk.
Correct.
All right, very interesting. Now, one more question before we move off of this. I asked just now if there are some forms of cancer that, maybe people generally say it is genetically connected. If my mother hereditary, if my mother has it, I may be more likely to get it. Certain kinds of behaviors. You go to the doctor, they ask you, anybody in your family suffers from hypertension, those kinds of things. So there are, even with the lifestyle diseases, there is another dimension, and I wanted to get that clear. There's another dimension. In other words, a disease may be considered, and this is my layman's term, so if I'm not clear, don't be afraid to say you're asking the wrong question. But am I understanding that the disease may be considered non-communicable, but you can get it from how do I put it? It may not be behavior related. In other words, can I get a non-communicable disease through hereditary means?
Yes, you can. However, in some cases, if you are able to reduce the modifiable risk factors, as you correctly said, you then reduce your risk, because my mother has breast cancer doesn't mean that I have to get breast cancer. But then if I have family history, strong family history to breast cancer, but I am not reducing my risk factors, my modifiable risk factors, I am therefore increasing my risk. So by not eating healthy, by using alcohol, by smoking tobacco, being obese and not exercising, I am putting myself at higher risk for that cancer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very well. Thank you so much for that information. I don't know if any one of the other of you wants to jump in and add something that you feel you can share. You're free to do so at any time. Yes, go ahead, Dr.
So I wanted to say, just backing up what Nurse Williams mentioned, we do know that environmental factors are important for manifestation of disease. So everyone pretty much has cancer genes, really, and they may not manifest, they may not show up unless they're exposed to a particular environment. So like Nurse Williams said, the exposure to nicotine, or tobacco containing products. And we have to be very careful when we talk about tobacco containing products, because you can get tobacco or exposure to tobacco or nicotine from other sources besides smoking, so we have to be careful with that to encourage persons to avoid tobacco, really. Even things like caffeine, tobacco, alcohol, all of those are potential factors that can make your body develop a particular disease or manifest a disease. And likewise with cancers as well. So you would have heard of stories like, for example, twins were separated at birth, and one went on one particular path of a healthier lifestyle, didn't develop a particular disease that is running in the family, and the other twin would have manifested because they were exposed to a particular environment for most of their life, and then they would have manifested that disease that is hereditary or tends to run in their family. So we know for sure environmental factors are very important in disease manifestations.
Now, I am sometimes amazed at the wealth of information we have, and how sometimes I wanted to say we tend to be a bit hypocritical, but I want to be very careful about my language. After all, this is going public. But my question is, if alcohol consumption is so dangerous and it's linked to so many things, and we're talking about risk factors here, and we're talking about tobacco risk factors, how is it that we are able to go to the supermarket or to the shop next door and freely purchase these products? I mean, both of you work for the Ministry of Health. I don't want to put you under any pressure, but but it is established that these are huge risk factors. And one of the concerns we ought to have is the health bill at the end of the day. When you have a government that looks at providing health care for its citizens, that has to be a concern. So why is it, you don't have to respond, but I'm just asking, talking out loud, why is it that these things are so freely available to all and sundry?
So the government, the ministry has an obligation to protect the health of the citizens, and you're correct. But then what you will find, as with everything else, the political will and the health of the public, sometimes we have a problem with that, because then what you have happening, so we all know that we are a tourist country, tourism country. That's our number one bread earner. And so if you take this to the politicians, most of the time, this is what they're going to say to you. But the tourists come here to drink and to smoke and all those unhealthy stuff. So then what you will find happening, as much as the WHO and the PAHO would recommend to the countries, these best buys to reduce NCDs, what you would find happening is that they will have policies. So you might see in an alcohol policy or tobacco policy, they look at, so persons under a certain age, you're not allowed to smoke or to consume alcohol. Then they'll put policies in place and put designated smoking areas for persons to smoke and things like that. Or another best buy they use is to increase the tax on these items, so to kind of tax it out of the reach of persons. But then again, it comes back to them, will tell you that everybody have a choice. And so
interesting.
Sometimes we have those issues.
I was observing that, they're currently following the Football World Cup, and because it is being played in a Muslim country, they did make a decision just before the series started, that there would be no alcohol allowed in the stands. And I know a lot of people were upset over that, but the principles are their principles, and they made that decision, and ultimately people had to comply. Sometimes I think we need to just do the right thing. Anyway, let's move on here.
But the sad thing is, those alcohol that were already purchased, they're going to be sent to the country who wins the World Cup. So somebody's going to be drinking a whole lot of alcohol.
I suppose. Now, Dr. Gardner, I want to, this next question is for everybody, but I want to begin with you on this one, primarily because you're a pastor. I want to get your take on this. In my introduction earlier, I highlighted the fact that Adventists are known for their emphasis on maintaining health as part of their religious duty. What exactly does this entail? And if you were to sum up the health message that the church purports, what would you say?
I think that the health message we have is a very comprehensive message, which talks about the prevention, right? Preventing of diseases and maintaining a state of wellness. And what I think is happening today is that we have developed many cultures now, or different ways of thinking. And so whereas we need to promote a healthy lifestyle, we somewhat get caught up in the all of the day in terms of what happens. And if I could piggyback on what Sister Williams said in terms of the alcohol consumption and the politics and so on about it, is that whereas on one hand you want the leaders to lead, you have folks who believe that my survival or my economic way of life depends on me having to do certain things and promote things that are not healthy. For instance, like even though we emphasize prevention and lifestyle modification and so forth, you still find that even some of our members who do catering, especially for children and so on, by the school and so on, you discover that what they have to sell the student is not in keeping with what we promote. And when you ask about it now, they say everybody got to eat, everybody got to live. So everybody has to survive. But the church has a message which I believe is, if not the best message of prevention, lifestyle modification, and also dietary choices is important. If your dietary choice is not important or you don't take much keen interest in your diet, that goes towards the what we call the nourishment of your body, where you get the proper nutrition and so on. And when you go outside of the natural way of doing things, you always find that there's always have to be something that you have to add. But our message is clear that we prevent disease and we communicate a emphasis on lifestyle modification. And as Nurse Williams said before, when you have to modify, and the environment too also plays a crucial role in it. Because when I was younger, I used to be asthmatic. Then I learned that there's certain environments that would trigger off a asthmatic attack. So I've learned over the years to make sure my environment is what it should be, make sure my diet is what it should be, because it all comes into play a part in it. So basically, we preach a prevention lifestyle, we preach a message of dietary control, where we allow our diets to be the main factor in giving our bodies the proper nutrients. So if your lifestyle modification in terms of your work ethics, your stress level, all this come into play, it's a holistic view. We look at the body as a whole, all right? And so we try to approach it from that angle where we let a person, we look at the whole person, not just one factor, but the whole person, and why we find ourselves in a situation we find ourselves in. And in most cases, if we would modify or change our way of thinking, then we will do well, but sometimes the willpower is not there. I think that's where we have the challenge.
Now you mentioned a few things there. I just want to expand on one of these areas. And you said something rather very interesting, that, I may be a Seventh-day Adventist and I am involved in catering. At the end of the day, I want to make sure that I get money to support myself. So I'm going to tend to sell what the people want to eat and not necessarily what is good for them. That, I suppose, is what is happening around us. The will to do the right thing is sidetracked by the need, I suppose you may say, or the desire for monetary gain. Now, my question, perhaps the medical folks here can respond, and again, if it's an inappropriate question, leave it alone. But from your observation, would you say that Seventh-day Adventists on a whole adhere to the message that we preach in terms of health? Okay, maybe that's a question to Billy.
Oh, no, I can answer, but I was just wondering if Doctor wanted to take a time. I just don't want to take up all the conversation.
Okay,
But,
all right.
so I can go first and I'll have Dr. Sweep.
Yes.
I can tell you no. I mean, whether it's in the workplace where, I have Seventh-day Adventist colleagues, in the hospital where I worked for a number of years, I don't see a difference with what is the diet, the lifestyle, the exercise of our Seventh-day Adventists versus non-Seventh-day Adventists. As a matter of fact, I have non-Seventh-day Adventists that will tell you, they try to eat healthy, and there are certain foods that they don't eat, like some people are not even eating red meat and stuff like that. And again, that's another cause of cancer of the colon. But we're preaching from the church that you should not be eating meat, but then our membership is still consuming that. And some churches even have the problem where folks are trying to figure out what is even wrong with them bringing it to church. I mean, there are many times we have potluck and stuff at church, and you see the way our members eat. And as much as you will say to them, listen, I mean, we are serving food, but you only need one carbohydrate food on your plate. So you don't need macaroni, rice, macaroni salad, potato salad, all on the same plate. And it's interesting because today I had 10 minutes for health, and that was basically, trying to tell people how to eat healthy and survive the holiday season. And so when I even started by saying one of the first things we do is to eat from a smaller plate, that was a problem. If some person said, well, if the plate is that small, then you need two. So we are not understanding that we really don't need to consume so much food, and then we eat and we're not exercising. Some person eat in bed or watching television, and then we are not exercising. Drinking water is even a problem with some of our members.
It is true. And I was going to say that, the health message is comprehensive, as Dr. Gardner said. It's not just about the diet. It's also about the habits. It's about how much rest we get. Some of us are guilty of that. It's about exercise, it's about the whole package, not just one part of it, but the whole package. Now, Dr. De Castro, sorry. Let me ask you here. Are we seeing evidence of a failure to practice the health principles in the Adventist population? In other words, if as Nurse Williams said, more of our members were adhering to the principles that we outline, obesity is an issue, for example, and I don't think we have to see what people are eating most times to determine whether or not, you can look in some of our congregations, and there are some persons who clearly need to manage their weight a little better. And folks will tell you, and most times in a kind of jovial way, I love my Kentucky and that kind of thing. I know that Antiguans, I was amazed. I heard some stats the other day of how much chicken we consume in Antigua. It is incredibly amazing. I remember some time ago, we went to a Pathfinder camporee on St. Kitts. And when the Antiguan contingent landed, they went to Kentucky, and Kentucky ran out of chicken. And that was a very bad witness for the church, a church that teaches health principles. So my question, Dr. De Castro, is there any sort of correlation to the failure to practice the health principles and what we are seeing turning up in the general population with respect to certain diseases, the hypertension, the diabetes, etc.?
All right. I just wanted to know if you wanted me to clarify what I'm seeing within the denomination.
Yes, if that is possible.
Okay, good. So I had the opportunity to participate in a health fair on more than one occasion.
It sounds to me as though there's a little internet.
The cholesterol levels.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
And it was really...
Dr. De Castro, can I just ask you to repeat that, because I think your bandwidth fell out a little bit there.
Okay. So, yes. So we had screenings, which included the weight, blood pressure, the blood glucose levels, and cholesterol levels. And it was amazing to see that the amount of hypertension or hypertensive readings that we saw, randomly among persons, the blood glucose readings, the cholesterol readings. So evidently, that was just that would be like a small study, that was done at the time. And it was on more than one occasion. So you definitely have the evidence that it's not correlating. What we see live in reality is not correlating with what, the basic principles are that are being taught.
Okay, somebody is asking, one of our viewers is asking, how many of these diseases, these lifestyle diseases, are preventable and reversible?
I think most of them as I said, lifestyle mean that is your way of living that cause these things to happen. And even though sometimes persons like diabetes, my mom is a diabetic, she's hypertensive, but I'm none of these. So what you find people believe now, and I say it's a culture thing, we're cultured to believe that because this person has it, I'm going to naturally get it. It doesn't really work that way. It's because everybody has an individual decision to make. And I say it's a willpower to change what we're doing. All right. And also the fact that we don't see the correlation now. And just the other day we had the health fair at the recreation grounds and by the police ground. I was one of those who were doing consultation with some of the folks. And when they do their cholesterol, their blood sugar, and they come to me now to have a consultation now, and you see the amount of there's a spike in the amount of the sugar levels. So some folks are so high, and also the cholesterol was too high, and so you can see definitely that it's not resonating with our people because we in a society where we allow the society to dictate how we move, or we believe that look, the culture thing is you get sick, go to the doctor, that can get you well. Doctor doesn't get anybody well, right? And I think that's the myth that people have run with, the doctor can get you well. The doctor doesn't get you well. The doctor might get you back in a balanced situation where your body was out of balance, but they get you back in a position where your body now can help itself. When the body can't help itself, you're in a very bad shape, right? And so the doctor's job now is to aid you to get you back in a position where your body can work for itself. Because the body was designed to work for itself. It was designed to heal itself. It was designed to nourish itself from the food you eat. So when you eat the wrong kind of food, you're not really getting what you need to get. And so you find that a lot of the fast food places in Antigua right now, when they open, you find that the first persons to go there and boast about they're the first to go there is a member from the church. They boast about they were the first to get in line to get inside Kentucky or Burger King or some other stuff, right? And I know something is not happening where our messages are resonating with the folks out there, with their members out there. And so
somebody said, sorry to interrupt, but somebody said that perhaps the pull, I don't know. I remember when I made a decision to stop eating red meats. I wasn't even a Seventh-day Adventist at that time, but I chose to change my diet, and it's a matter for me. I think it's a matter of discipline, and before long, your taste buds become accustomed to the new way of style, and then the whole thing becomes distasteful afterwards. But somebody's also making the argument that perhaps people don't understand how to prepare meals that provide adequate nutrition in a meaningful way. I don't know. Should we as a church be emphasizing more on the how of meal preparation, do you think?
I think that is important, but I think the challenge with that, because in my church, we normally have those kind of education programs where we have cooking classes where we demonstrate to folks how to prepare certain things. But what you find, for the moment, people get excited, but when they have to take the time now to prepare something, they don't want to take the time because it's easy for them to get a box of chicken, tie it up, and to just wash it off with some lime or vinegar, whatever, and just do some seasoning and fix up there. But when you have to do like a bean loaf or a bean patty or some other kind of vegetarian stuff where you could help yourself now, people are saying, we don't have the time for that. But somebody would take the time to do it and then sell you. That I'm saying it can cost you less, because in my home, we do a lot of those stuff where we prepare stuff and you can take the time. It's just a matter of planning. You plan well and you balance your work with what you do, because when it comes to it, health is very important. As I said before, it's the willpower. And we tend to gravitate to what is most popular. And then what's happening in church now, even though we have a good message, there's always this argument, why can't we eat this? As opposed to leave it out of that. And then they run with the idea that, oh, the Bible says we can eat this, we can eat that. But they haven't looked at the real cause why we were told we can eat it. And they have not been listening to the fact that meat eating, as Isabel always said, would have caused problems as red meat. colon cancer and other stuff and so on. And a lot of folks don't understand that our bodies were not made to digest meat, right? And so we need to understand that meat products basically will petrify in the gut or in the intestine. And just like you said, the dog and said would sit and rotten. That's how the meat breaks down in the system. And then, of course, the colon, that's where most disease starts, right there. If you have a healthy colon, then your body will be healthy. That's why sometimes when you go to checkup now, the first thing you tell you, take a stool test or urine test. And nowadays, you have to take 3 stool tests 3 days in a row just to make sure, because there's where the disease starts, in the colon. So if the colon is healthy, then of course the whole body will be healthy. And so some foods that you eat, the food's supposed to move along the system and to clean it out. But then when the food is not clean out, it means that you're eating the wrong kind of food. And so we have become cultured, as I say, in terms of what we do. And we tend to follow the crowd, because what it's easier to fit in the crowd than to be different. And that's what is hampering us with our health message. We follow the crowd, but we don't want to be different. We figure, well, look, let me enjoy what everybody enjoying. And then if it comes to the fact we have to go to the doctor, let me go to the doctor and let the doctor try to help me. But then the doctor is going to say, you need to change your lifestyle, but then we still don't want to change. So how do we cope if we don't want to change?
It's a mouthful you have shared there, and I'm tempted to follow up on so many things, but our time is limited. We have just about 20 more minutes. I want to get to Dr. De Castro. I wanted for us to zero in on very important principles that you shared there, Pastor Gardner, and perhaps, I need a separate program just to talk about the whole matter of nutrition. But Dr. De Castro, if we can zero in on some of the specific lifestyle diseases. So the more popular ones, and in my way of thinking, we talk about cardiovascular diseases, stroke, diabetes, and that kind of thing. What are the most common non-communicable diseases among us here in the Caribbean?
Okay, good. So there's a website by the name of Healthy Caribbean Coalition, and that is available for anybody to read. It's very user-friendly, and it provides a lot of information on what we see in the region, the Caribbean region, which is a part of the Americas. So locally, what we would have seen in data from 2010 to 2013, that the top 5 causes of death are from non-communicable diseases, and particularly the cardiovascular diseases and cancer. So for cardiovascular diseases, we would think about hypertension, stroke, and also there are other non-communicable diseases that are ranked very highly there, which include cancer and type 2 diabetes. And imagine those are the top 5 causes of death in our population consistently for years. So that means we really have a problem. And if we know that these are lifestyle diseases, then the drive really is to to help to modify as much as possible our lifestyles to prevent those diseases being the leading causes of death in our population.
Now that's very telling, very interesting. So we are talking about the fact that the 5, if I heard you correctly, the 5 leading causes of death are things that we can control.
Yes.
Now that is interesting. So with a change of behavior and discipline, we can make a significant difference. This is what I hear you saying, Doc.
Yes, that's correct.
And that's amazing. Wow.
Yes. So another thing I wanted to point out is that there are consequences of cardiovascular diseases. So hypertension is a cardiovascular disease, and we know consequences of having hypertension can be stroke, having a stroke, or having a heart attack, for example. Yes, and we know type 2 diabetes as well contributes to cardiovascular disease. Having high cholesterol levels contribute as well. So there are also risk factors. I mean, these actual diseases function as the risk factors for cardiovascular events. So major events would be having a stroke or having a heart attack. So all of them are tied together. It's like a vicious cycle, basically.
And what is important as well to Dr. De Castro is the complications we are seeing from the diabetes and the hypertension. Because especially with the diabetes, we're seeing a lot of persons are getting blind. We're seeing increase in the lower limb amputation. As a matter of fact, I just saw one the other with both lower and upper limb amputation. And so we need to do something about that because it's happening as well in our younger population. And that is not a good thing for us.
So, I don't know, maybe Nurse Williams, we're talking about cardiovascular diseases. Can we zero in on that a little bit? Lifestyle. If I want to be careful not to develop cardiovascular diseases, what should my behavior pattern look like?
So we can even just take the risk factors. So let's even look in at diet and nutrition. What we try to promote from the ministry is even to encourage women to start taking care of their diet before they even get pregnant. So that you're going through pregnant, you're eating healthy, exercise and all of that. Then we promote breastfeeding, exclusive breastfeeding up to the age of 6 months. But what you find is that a lot of mothers, for whatever reason, some of them don't want to breastfeed. And so they're introducing artificial feeds to the kids. And not only are they doing the artificial feeds, they are then adding cereals and stuff to these milk at a very early age. There is where a lot of our babies now are coming down with the asthmatic conditions, again, the NCDs, the risk factor of obesity and overweight, which right now, obesity and overweight is an epidemic in our region. So the Latin American Caribbean region, of which we are part of, is considered to be the most unhealthy region of the world. We don't produce these sugar-sweetened beverages, but we are the largest consumption of them. So we are not eating correctly. So the obesity levels are rising. So 1 in 3, in the childhood obesity, 1 in 3 children in our region is obese.
1 in 3?
So yes, 1 in 3.
Yeah.
So with all these obese children, we are putting them at risk for the breast cancer, the colon cancer, uterine cancer, gallbladder cancer, ovarian cancers, kidney cancers. And doctor will tell you how many of these children we are seeing as well in the health system with type 2 diabetes. So it's like adult onset diabetes is showing up in our children. Again, it goes back to the diet. And then when Pastor was speaking about us not planning for meals, it also shows in the way that mothers, parents, let me say parents, because some fathers are responsible for fixing meals as well. Instead of rising early or planning and starting your work the night before, it is easier for the persons to give their children a $10 or $20 to purchase breakfast and lunch for school. Look at what is being sold at the schools. The food environment at the school is so unhealthy. So kids are having hot dog, hamburger, pizza, and a soda for breakfast. The same thing with some sugar candy or something for snacks. And then again at lunch is the same pizza, burgers, hot dog, French fries, fried chicken.
I wanted to interrupt a little bit. I don't know which one of you. Dr. Gardner, I'm not seeing you anymore. I'm not sure if something is wrong with the camera.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
I saw freeze up. I don't know what happened there.
Okay, maybe you can just come out and come back in and see if it works a little better.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, let me ask this question. I don't know which one of you will respond to it. But if I am, as a parent, if I am responsible for the nutritional needs of my child, and I am feeding my child so that my child becomes obese, you're talking about 1 in 3 now. Should I not be, and obesity has all of these negative consequences for the future of my child, the health of my child. Should I not be held accountable for that? Can the government charge me for obesity in my child?
Unfortunately, I'm not aware of that. And it also messes up the mental health of the child because a lot of times they're being bullied at school. And so that's an extra problem on top of those kids.
I know at least one country in the world, I can't remember the country, but I did hear it on BBC World News that they were going to charge parents and a serious charge too if their children were obese. I think sometimes we have to take some drastic measures. If you're talking about 1 in 3, that's 33% of the population.
Yes.
You know, that is alarming.
And our children are supposed to be our future. So you look at them and see what type of future is ahead for them. Some of them are not going to even make it to age 30.
Now the other thing is that I don't know. I mean, I'm watching the time all the time. But Dr. Gardner mentioned earlier the matter of planning, you know, and people not seeming not to have the time to prepare. I am personally amazed at how many persons I pass on the road buying breakfast when I'm driving to work.
Exactly.
You know, for me, it's very disgusting. I mean, you're leaving home and you're going on the road to buy breakfast. You know, that something is wrong with that, so far as I'm concerned. But maybe I'm from the old school. But when you purchase food on the road, you don't know what is in it. You know, I mean,
you don't even know when it was prepared.
Exactly. So
I don't know what conditions.
Isn't that itself a risk?
It is. Because there's where some of our foodborne illnesses are coming from.
Wow.
Food are being kept at incorrect temperatures.
Now
I went to a secondary school a few weeks ago to do prayers with them in the morning. And where the assembly was just close to the cafeteria. And I'm seeing students leave home from where they live, in close by to the school, and they come to school and heading straight to the cafeteria from home, you know. Straight to the cafeteria, and even when the bell goes to worship, one guy was there arguing with the attendant that he wants to buy something. I'm saying to him, sir, the bell already gone, it's time to worship. And he was insisting that he needs to eat, and I'm saying, but he's just coming from home, right? And then the parents will give them money, and they're not going to buy nothing healthy to eat. It's all a lot of sugary stuff, a lot of cheeses and cheese that. Not only that, but some of these things contain what we call now food enhancers, or we call excitotoxins, where the color to attract young people, the taste. All this is there to attract young people, the frizziness of the soda. All these are there, and that's what they like. But then they don't understand the dangers they go through in consuming these things, right? And I think we live in a fast-paced world where before all these fast food things came in and taken off, children used to have to walk with the lunch kit with the sandwich and the fruits and the water and the juice. But nowadays, children are telling the parents, look, I don't want to walk with these things. You don't have the time to walk with them. They prefer to get a $10 or $20. And some parents are happy to give them money because it means that it's less stress for them. So if I give my child $20 every day to buy lunch, they're not even sure what the child is buying.
That is not true.
That the child gets sick and then they get called to come to school because the child not well, and you want them, what happened to the child? But something child is ingesting or cause some problem, maybe stomach problem, something.
Okay, Dr. De Castro, I believe you wanted to add something there.
Yes. So I would just remember something I heard on the radio years ago. I was just driving, listening to BBC, and there was a health talk, and there was some data that was being presented. And what they mentioned is that when foods of high fat and high sugar content are consumed, when that high fat and high sugar is consumed together, then it becomes like a creates an effect on the brain that is similar to using illicit drugs. So people tend to develop a lot of addictive eating habits when they eat foods that are high in fat and carbohydrates together. So if they're eating, for example, burger and fries and having a soda, it just becomes natural for them to want to crave that type of food, pizza and soda, burger and fries and soda, just because the research actually showed that. you know, that those addictive behaviors start. And you would see, for example, persons on the shows like their 600-pound life and so on, they can stay in their bed and basically bully their family members, their friends, whatever, into bringing them that type of food, because that is what they want to eat, and they will eat nothing else unless that is provided. You know, so the planning, like we said, I mean, it's just key. You have to try to like train your body, you know, expose your body to particular things and train your body to want these things. Because if you don't, whatever is out there is available, cheap, easy, free, it's all around abundance. And then you're just going to train yourself opposite, you know, to what you really want.
It's interesting that you said that. I was listening to this documentary recently on DW. It was a documentary on sugars, and that is why I listened. I was, you know, interested in what they were going to say. And I learned that they said a lot of things they put sugar in serve no real purpose other than to produce an addictive element. So they talk about things like some of the breads and so on. And they said the idea is that there is an addictive quality to the sugar, and it causes people to want to go back for it again and again. Now that's interesting. Now we have 5 minutes. So let me ask this. I need to ask this question. It's getting close to Christmas, right? 1 week away. This is a time of the year when people indulge in excessive eating. Some people say, well, you know, I don't eat like this all the time. It's just a one-off thing. So let me indulge. Now, so my question, I don't mean to get anybody guilty, but my question is, what do we need to look out for? What are some of the things to avoid this season around? I mean, we're talking to people here, you know, some persons are diabetic, and I've had diabetic people say, you know, I'm not supposed to eat this mango, but I'm going to indulge, and that kind of thing. So what are some of the things we need to look out for as we get close to Christmas? Nurse Williams,
so you're talking about things that we need to be doing.
Yes, or things we need to be mindful of.
Okay, so again, as you said, yes, we're going to be having a lot of food, because most people, that's all Christmas is for them, just eating a lot of food and going from place to place. But then you need to be aware that you need to make the right choices. So there's a lot of food, but all you need to do is to watch the portion sizes of the things that you're eating. So if there's 5 desserts on the table, you want to sample all, you just need to take a little piece of everything so you can have a taste of what there is. If that's what you want to do, because for some persons, they just can't see food and leave it alone. So for those persons, you say to them, just take a small portion of what there is. Then you don't have to take all of it at one time. We have to make sure as well that we're still hydrating and drinking enough water. Christmas dinner, Christmas time should also include some type of games, especially something that is going to get you moving. Some person might not want to go for a walk after they finish eating, but if you can be playing games that, you know, you're moving, so you're not in the same place all the time, keep moving. For our diabetics and our hypertensive patients, they need to be checking their blood pressure and their blood sugars more often, because a lot of time we're not paying attention to the quantity of what you're eating, and then your blood sugar is going to shoot up like that, especially eating all these sweets and carbohydrate food during the Christmas time. Another way we can get over this, as I started earlier, just eat from a smaller plate. We all go to the restaurant, we pay $100 and something for a meal, and they give you a plate that is so big, and you have to get a microscope to search for the food that is being served. So we can do the same thing with ourselves, because you have to say, listen, I need to take control of my step, because we eat like that, and then we're going to end up after Christmas, everybody blood sugar high, hypertension, our blood pressures are going up. We're not sleeping as much, because some people are going to be going from house to house or village to village to see friends and family. So we're going to be spending a lot of time. But we need to make sure that we are sleeping properly as well and keeping ourselves well hydrated. So for those who are preparing the meals, another thing we can do is to choose dishes that are lower in calories. So look for a cake that has less sugar, cookies that has less sugar for the kids. You know, so we have to look for things and choose the healthy options so that, you know, we can enjoy the Christmas, but yet at the same time, take care of our health.
Okay, thank you so much, Nurse.
Sorry, I wanted to add something, please. I noticed also our culture does promote a lot of pre-Christmas events, you know, so there are a lot of dinners and lunches and so on. So even limiting the amount of those that you go to or participate in, that can help. Because it's like a whole season, you know, like when you have mango season, you know, Christmas season is like that. It's very, I think there's a lot of add-on before and after, so we can really limit the amount of times or the amount of activities we get involved in when it comes to eating, really. I think you're muted, Dr. Greene.
Okay, sorry about that. Not sure how that happened. But I noticed that the Caribbean mentality is my plate has to be packed, you know, even with protein. My understanding is that our bodies don't need so much protein.
You need
But,
4 to 6 ounces.
man, he wants to have 3 chicken legs in his plate, or, you know, that big fried fish, that kind of stuff. Can you say a word on fried foods? I think that's important.
That's one of the most dangerous way of preparing foods, because sometimes not only are we frying, which adds extra fat, we are not using good fats, which most of the times they're not even available. Just by frying alone, and that can do some of that with the chemistry. Once you heat these oils, sometimes they produce some dangerous chemicals that are not even good for our health. So we should try and bake or grill our food or steam instead of frying. Because by adding the extra fat, you're adding extra calories, which then creating the problem with the processed foods that then again goes back to be linked with some of these NCDs that we're talking about.
So a good gift to give for Christmas is an air fryer, so that people
Yes.
can. All right. Our time is up. We're going to give you just a closing comment. Make it real short. So let's start with Dr. Gardner, Nurse Williams, and then Dr. DeCastro. Just a closing comment.
Well, I think that we need to look at prevention, and we need to have the willpower to change our lifestyle. And I believe if we do that, I think we can overcome a lot of the situation that we find ourselves in right now. The willpower to change.
Okay, so let's use less sugar, less fat, less salt for a longer life.
I wish I had time to talk about the salt, because that's another thing, but another program.
Yes.
Dr. DeCastro?
Yes, I would like to say encourage each other to eat healthily and to practice overall healthy lifestyles, and find persons around you who enjoy doing that, you know, to get more encouragement for yourself as well.
I think that's an excellent idea. If you're going it alone, it's easy to get discouraged. But if you have individuals who spur you on, then that's a good thing. Now, friends, we have been talking to this panel, a panel from the Antigua Seventh-day Adventist Health Association. They have shared with us on non-communicable diseases, the things we need to watch out for, the things we need to do. And there were some statistics shared here. 1 in 3 babies in Antigua, in the Caribbean, suffers from obesity. That is really frightening. We can take charge of our health. Well, next week, we have the final installment of Let's Talk for this year. We won't have Let's Talk on the 31st, but next week, we're going to be talking about Christmas. There's a lot of questions relating to Christmas. Should Adventists really celebrate Christmas? What is good? Should we use a Christmas tree? Is this, you know, was Jesus born on December 25, or was he born sometime else? We're going to be discussing Christmas next week. You want to be in on this one. We're going to talk about myths. We're going to talk about facts. We're going to be talking about the truth. So next week's Let's Talk, the topic is Christmas, all about Christmas. This is all the time we have for today. We wish you God's blessings, and trust that you will be with us next week at 3 p.m. May God bless you until then.